The ship moved through the black emptiness of space like a small fish in a very big ocean. Captain Park stood at the front window of the horizon's edge and looked at the stars. She was 47 years old. Her hair had turned gray early, and lines covered her face from years of hard decisions. But her eyes were still sharp and bright. "Captain, we are getting strange readings," said Lieutenant from his station. He was young, maybe 25, with messy black hair and a face full of hope. Most young officers lost that hope after a few years in deep space. Had not lost his yet. Walked over to his screen. "What kind of strange?" "I do not know how to explain it. There is something out there, something big, but it is not showing up on normal sensors." His fingers moved fast across his controls. "It is like it is hiding from us." For 800 years, humanity had traveled among the stars. They had found 12 systems with planets they could live on. They had built cities in space and machines that could bend light itself. But in all that time, they had never found aliens. Not one, not a single signal, not a single ruin. Nothing. Some people said the universe was empty. Others said aliens were hiding. A few whispered that something was keeping humanity alone on purpose. Had spent her whole life looking for the truth. Today, she thought, maybe she would find it. "Take us closer," she ordered. The horizon's edge changed direction and moved toward the strange readings. The crew was quiet. Everyone felt that something important was about to happen. After 2 hours, suddenly stood up from his chair. "Captain, you need to see this." On the main screen, a shape appeared from the darkness. It was enormous. Bigger than any station humanity had ever built. Bigger than some moons. It looked like a flower made of metal and crystal, with petals that spread out for hundreds of kilometers. Lights moved across its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. "What is that?" whispered one of the crew members. Felt her heart beating hard in her chest. "That," she said slowly, "is proof that we are not alone." They found a place to dock their ship. The station seemed to welcome them, opening a door that fit their vessel perfectly, too perfectly, as if it had been waiting for them. Inside, the air was clean and fresh. The halls were wide and covered with symbols that no human had ever seen. Led a small team deeper into the structure. Walked beside her, recording everything with his equipment. "This place is old," said Doctor through the communication link from the ship. She was their expert on ancient things, a woman who had spent 30 years studying mysteries. "My readings say it is at least 4 billion years old, maybe older." 4 billion years. Earth was only 4.5 billion years old itself. This station had been built when Earth was still a ball of fire and rock. They found a room filled with screens and lights. When stepped inside, the screens turned on by themselves. Images appeared, thousands of them, millions. Each one showed a different planet, different creatures, different civilizations rising and falling like waves on a beach. "It is a record," said with wonder in his voice. "A record of every species in the galaxy." Walked through the room looking at the images. So many forms of life, creatures of light, beings made of gas, things that lived in the hearts of stars. All of them had risen, built great civilizations, and then disappeared. Then she found Earth. The image showed her planet from space, beautiful and blue. But what caught her attention was a symbol floating next to it, a mark that appeared on no other planet in the entire room. She did not know what it meant, but it made her feel cold. "What does this symbol mean?" she asked out loud. The air in the room changed. The temperature dropped, the lights flickered, and then they appeared. Had imagined aliens many times. She had pictured creatures with too many eyes or too many legs. She had imagined monsters and angels and everything between. But she had never imagined this. They looked like geometry given life. Triangles and circles and shapes that should not exist, all folding into each other and unfolding again. They glowed with soft light that shifted from blue to gold to colors that had no name. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "We are said a voice that came from everywhere and nowhere. It did not use sound. The words simply appeared in its mind. "We have watched your kind for a very long time." Forced herself to stand straight. Her crew looked scared, but she could not show fear. "Why?" she asked. "Why watch us? Why does no one in the galaxy speak to us?" "Because you are dangerous." The word hung in the air like a knife. "We have done nothing to you," said. "We have never even met another species until now. You do not understand." They moved closer, their forms shifting like dreams. "We have existed for 11 billion years. We have seen the birth and death of countless stars. We have watched a million species rise and fall. And in all that time, we have seen your pattern only once before." "What pattern?" They showed her a vision. It appeared in her mind like a memory that was not her own. She saw a galaxy full of light and life. Then she saw it die. Star after star going dark, planets crumbling to dust, trillions of lives ending in silence, a whole universe gone. "This is what comes from species like yours," they said. "You call it progress. We call it the recursion. You build and build until you break everything, including yourselves." His hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "You are wrong about us. Every species says that. Every species believes they are different. They are never different. Then why not destroy us? If we are so dangerous, why let us live at all?" There was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was softer, almost sad. "Because we are not murderers, we are watchers. We contain, we wait, we hope that we are wrong." They began to fade. "Return to your space, human. Stay in your cage. You are not ready for the galaxy. You must never be ready." "No." The word came from his mouth before she could stop it. They paused. "I have spent my whole life looking for answers," said. "My whole species has spent centuries wondering why we are alone. You do not get to show up, call us dangerous, and then disappear. You owe us more than that." "We owe you nothing." "Then I will take what I need." Turn 2. Did you get all of this? The recordings, the images, everything? Looked scared but nodded. "Yes, Captain." "Send everything to Earth, to every colony, to every ship in space. Send it now." "You cannot do this," they said, their forms growing brighter with what might have been anger. "Watch me." His fingers flew across his equipment. The data burst out from the station, traveling at the speed of light toward human space. In a few hours, everyone would know. The secret was out. They watched in silence as the transmission finished. Then the voice spoke one last time. "You have made a terrible mistake, human. The cage was for your protection. Now the galaxy will know you exist, and not everyone will be as patient as us." They vanished like smoke in wind. Stood alone in the ancient room, surrounded by the records of 1 million dead civilizations. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were still shaking, but she did not regret what she had done. Humanity deserved to know the truth. Whatever came next, they would face it together. She touched her communication device. "All crew, return to the ship. We are going home." As the horizon's edge pulled away from the ancient station, watched it grow smaller in the window. They thought humans were dangerous. They thought humans would destroy everything. Maybe they were right. Or maybe, for the first time in 11 billion years, they were about to be proven wrong. Either way, nothing would ever be the same again. 6 months had passed since Captain's message reached Earth. 6 months of chaos, fear, and endless arguments. The news had spread like fire through dry grass. Aliens were real. They had been watching humanity for 200,000 years, and they thought humans were the most dangerous thing in the universe. Director sat in her office in Seoul, looking out the window at a city that had not changed in centuries. Flying cars moved between towers of glass and steel. People walked on bridges that floated in the air. Life continued as normal, even though everything had changed. As the head of the First Contact Division was supposed to have answers, she did not. Nobody did. Her door opened and Admiral walked in without knocking. He was a big man with a face like stone and a scar that ran from his eye to his jaw. He had earned that scar in the colony wars 20 years ago, when human fought human over distant planets. Respected him, but she did not trust him. "They are calling for blood," said, sitting down without being asked. "Half the military wants to build weapons, the other half wants to hide. Nobody wants to talk." "Talking is all we have," replied. "We cannot fight beings that are 11 billion years old." "We cannot bow to them either," leaned forward. "They put us in a cage like animals. For 200,000 years they watched us struggle and die and grow, and they did nothing. They owe us answers." Captain demanded answers. Look what it got her. Had become a hero to some people and a villain to others. She was locked in endless meetings and interviews, telling her story again and again. Some called her brave, some called her foolish, thought she was probably both. A message appeared on screen. She read it and felt her blood turn cold. "What is it?" asked. "They are here, though they want to talk." The meeting took place in a room with no windows, deep under the ground, and a dozen other leaders sat at a long table. At the other end, the air began to fold and twist. They appeared as they had appeared to, shapes of light and impossible geometry. "We come with an offer," they said. Their voice filled the room without making a sound. "The Galactic Council has discussed your situation. We are prepared to end your isolation." Felt her heart jump. "You will let us join the galaxy." "With conditions." This form shifted. "Your population must be limited. No more than 50 billion humans across all worlds. Your ships must not travel beyond your current range. You will have no weapons capable of destroying planets, and you will accept observers on all your colonies." Slammed his fist on the table. "That is not an offer, that is a leash." "It is survival," they replied. "You do not understand what you are, what you could become. We are trying to protect you and protect everyone else." "From what?" asked. "You keep saying we are dangerous. You showed Captain a vision of a dead galaxy, but you have not explained anything. What is the recursion? Why do you fear us so much?" There was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was heavy with something that might have been sadness. "We are not from this universe." The words made no sense at first. Stared at the glowing shapes, trying to understand. 11 billion years ago, another universe existed. It was full of life and wonder, more beautiful than anything you could imagine. We were young then, curious, ambitious. We built great things. We pushed the boundaries of what was possible, and then we pushed too far. They showed them images, a universe of light, beings of energy dancing between stars, civilizations that spanned billions of years, and then, slowly, darkness, spreading like ink through water. We broke something that could not be fixed. The laws of reality themselves began to fail. Our universe collapsed. Everything we loved, everything we built, everyone we knew. Gone. Only a few of us survived, escaping into this new universe as it was born. Felt tears in her eyes. She did not know why. "We swore it would never happen again," they continued. "So we watched, we guided. We contained any species that showed signs of the same pattern, the recursion, the endless push for more power, more knowledge, more control, until the breaking point. And you see this pattern in us," said. "We see it more clearly in you than in any species we have ever encountered. Your history is full of it. Your wars, your environmental destruction, your constant drive to conquer and expand. You are not evil. You simply cannot help yourselves." Laughed bitterly. "So we are broken, damaged goods. Is that what you are saying?" "No," they moved closer. "You are something we have never seen before, and that is what frightens us." In another part of the city, Doctor sat in her small office surrounded by artifacts from dead worlds. She had spent 30 years collecting these objects, broken pieces of technology, strange symbols carved in stranger metals. whispers of civilizations that had vanished long before humans learned to use fire. Now, finally, those whispers were starting to speak. She had recognized the symbol on humanity's file the moment Captain sent the images. She had seen it before, not once, not twice, but 17 times, on 17 different worlds, in 17 different ruins. The symbol meant those who return. Every civilization that had carried this mark had destroyed itself. Wars, plagues, accidents. The methods were different, but the result was always the same. They rose high and fell hard, leaving nothing behind but dust and this single symbol as a warning. But something did not fit. Pulled up humanity's history on her screen. According to this own records, humans should have died out 14 times. The Ice Age that lasted thousands of years. The plague that killed half of Europe. The wars that covered the whole planet. The asteroid that came so close to ending everything. 14 extinction events, and humans had survived every single one. Her door opened and Captain walked in. She looked tired. Her gray hair was messy and her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she was still standing, still fighting. "Director told me you found something," said. "I found a question," replied. "Every species marked with our symbol died, every single one except us. Why are we different? Maybe we are just lucky." "No one is that lucky. 14 times, Captain. We should be extinct 14 times over. Something is keeping us alive, something in our nature, something that do not understand." Sat down heavily. "One of them came to me last night, separately, secretly. It called itself the one who remembers." Leaned forward. "What did it say?" "It said they have been watching us longer than we know, since before we were human, since we were just animals on a small planet in a quiet corner of the galaxy. It said they have been waiting for us to destroy ourselves like all the others. But we did not. We did not." Eyes met. "It said something that I cannot stop thinking about. It said, 'We have watched a million species burn themselves out. You should have been extinct 14 times. You are not the recursion. You are something we have never seen, and that terrifies us more.'" Felt a shiver run down her spine. If we are not the recursion, then what are we? "I do not know, but I intend to find out." Back in the underground room, the meeting was ending badly. Had rejected this offer in harsh words. Had tried to find middle ground but failed. They were preparing to leave. "You are making a mistake," they said. "The galaxy is not a friendly place. There are things out there far worse than us, far less patient. If you reject our protection, you will face them alone." "Then we will face them alone," said. "We have faced worse." "You do not know what worse means." Stood up. "Wait, before you go, I need to know one thing. If we are so dangerous, so certain to destroy everything, why did you not just kill us? 1,000,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, any time before we became a threat. Why let us live?" The paused. Its form flickered with colors that had no name. "Because we hoped we were wrong about you. Because we remembered what it was like to be young and full of possibility. Because ending a species before it has a chance to prove itself is the greatest crime we can imagine. And now do you still hope?" There was quiet for a long time. "We do not know what to hope anymore. You are impossible, humans. Everything about you breaks our models, our predictions, our understanding. You should be dead. You should be monsters. You should be tyrants ruling with iron fists. Instead, you are still here, still growing, still caring about each other despite everything." It began to fade. "Perhaps that is what frightens us most. Not that you might destroy the universe, but that you might prove that everything we believe is wrong. And then we would have to ask ourselves what we have really been doing all these years." They vanished, leaving only silence behind. Looked at, for once, the old soldier had nothing to say. They had been given a choice: accept chains and live in a cage, or walk free into a galaxy that feared and hated them. It was not really a choice at all. Somewhere out there the stars were waiting, and humanity, impossible and stubborn and full of fire, was finally ready to answer. The Accord was the largest structure Ambassador Han had ever seen. It was a sphere built around a star, so big that entire planets could fit inside it. 4,000 different species called it home. It was the heart of galactic civilization, the place where decisions were made that affected trillions of lives. And now, for the first time in history, humans had been invited inside. Stood at the front of the ship as they approached. She was 52 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes that had seen too much. Before she became an ambassador, she had been a hostage negotiator. She had talked murderers into dropping their weapons. She had convinced terrorists to release children. She had faced the worst of humanity and found ways to reach them. Now she would try to reach beings that were not human at all. "Are you nervous?" asked her assistant, a young man named Lee. "Yes," said honestly, "but I cannot let them see that. What if they do not like us? Then I will make them like us." She turned to face him. "That is what I do. I find the common ground, the thing we share, the connection that makes enemies into friends. It is there somewhere. It is always there. I just have to find it." The ship docked at a port designed for beings of every size and shape. When the doors opened, stepped out into a world she could not have imagined. The inside of the Accord was like 100 different planets pushed together. There were sections with high gravity and sections with almost none, areas filled with water and areas filled with gas that would kill a human in seconds. Beings of every possible form moved through the crowds. Some walked on legs, some flew, some flowed like liquid, some simply appeared and disappeared at will. And all of them stopped to stare at the humans. Felt thousands of eyes on her. Some were curious, some were afraid, some showed something that looked very much like hate. A being made of crystal approached them. It was beautiful, its body catching the light and breaking it into rainbows. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am," it said. "I have been assigned to guide you. Welcome to the Accord, humans, though I must tell you, not everyone is happy that you are here." "I understand," said. "We are grateful for any welcome we receive." Tilted its crystalline head. "You are polite. I was told humans were aggressive and dangerous." "We can be. We can also be kind. Most of us are somewhere in between." Made a sound that might have been laughter. "Interesting. Come, the council is waiting." The council chamber was enormous. Thousands of species sat in sections that rose up like mountains on all sides. At the center was an empty space where those who spoke had to stand, surrounded by all those watching eyes. Had faced crowds before. She had addressed governments and criminals and angry mobs, but this was different. These were not humans. They had different values, different histories, different ways of seeing the universe. She could not assume anything. A voice boomed across the chamber. "The council recognizes the delegation from the human species. Step forward and state your purpose." Walked to the center alone. Her team stayed behind. This was her moment. "Thank you for allowing us to speak," she said. Her voice was steady. "For 800 years my species has traveled among the stars. In all that time we have never met another intelligent being. We thought we were alone. We thought the universe had forgotten us." She paused, looking around at the thousands of faces watching her. "Now we know the truth. We were not alone. We were isolated, contained, watched. They told us this was for our own protection and for the protection of the galaxy. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps we are dangerous. We have done terrible things to each other over the centuries. Wars, suffering, destruction. We do not hide from this. It is part of who we are." Some of the beings in the crowd shifted uncomfortably, continued. "But that is not all we are. We are also the species that takes care of its sick and old. We are the species that adopts children who are not our own. We are the species that runs into burning buildings to save strangers. We are the species that creates art and music and stories, not because we must, but because we cannot imagine a life without beauty." She took a breath. We come here not to demand anything. We come to learn, to understand, to find our place among you, whatever that place might be. We have been alone for a very long time. We do not want to be alone anymore. The chamber was silent. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, spoke up. Tell us about your history. We have seen the records. We know about your wars and your near extinctions, but we do not understand something. Why did you not give up? Smiled sadly. You want to know why we kept going? Yes, my species is 2 million years old. When we faced great disasters, many of us chose to end ourselves, to stop the suffering. It seemed logical, but your species faced disaster after disaster and you always continued. You always rebuilt. You always started again. We do not understand why. Thought about the question. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived a famine as a child and still laughed every day until she died at 93. She thought about her mother, who had lost everything in a fire and had simply started again the next morning. She thought about every human who had ever faced the darkness and decided to light a candle instead of cursing it. Because we love, she said simply. The chamber stirred. The word did not translate well for some species. Others seemed confused. I do not understand, said. Love, this is an emotion, yes, a feeling. It is more than that. It is a connection, a bond, a promise we make to each other without words. Felt tears threatening to fall but held them back. When a mother holds her child, she does not think about logic or survival or what makes sense. She thinks only of that small life in her arms and what she would do to protect it. When two people grow old together, they do not stay because it is convenient. They stay because they cannot imagine being apart. She looked around the chamber, at beings who had lived for millions of years, who had seen empires rise and fall, who had forgotten more than humanity would ever know. We keep going because we cannot bear to leave each other. We survive not for ourselves but for the people we love. Every time we have faced extinction, there has been someone holding someone else's hand, saying, not yet. We are not done yet. There is still something worth living for. The silence stretched on. Then, movement at the highest point of the chamber. The air began to twist and fold. The architect appeared. Had heard about this being, the oldest of the one who had ordered humanity's quarantine 11,000 years ago. It was vast, filling the upper part of the chamber with its impossible form, shapes within shapes. Time folded back on itself, a being older than stars. Human, the architect said, and the word shook the very walls. You speak of love, you speak of bonds and connections. These are small things. What are they against the death of stars? What are they against the collapse of reality itself? Looked up at the ancient being. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt calm. May I ask you a question? She said. The architect paused. You may. Why did you end your universe? The chamber went completely still. No one had ever asked the architect that question directly. No one had dared. We were trying to improve it, the architect said finally. We were trying to make it better, stronger, more perfect. We forgot why we wanted to improve it in the first place. And why did you? Again, silence. The architect's form flickered with colors that could not name. Because we loved it, the architect admitted. We loved our universe. We loved our people. We loved the beauty and wonder of existence. And in trying to protect what we loved, we destroyed it. Nodded slowly. Then you understand. Understand what? Why we keep going. Why we do not give up. You say love is a small thing, but it is not. It is the thing that makes us get up every morning. It is the thing that makes us fight when we should surrender. It is the thing that makes us rebuild when we should give up. It is the thing that makes us human. She spread her hands. You destroyed a universe because you loved it too much and forgot to be careful. We have nearly destroyed ourselves many times for the same reason, but we learned. We are still learning. Maybe we are the recursion. Maybe we will destroy everything. Or maybe we are the species that remembers what the forgot. And what is that? smiled. That the point of love is not to possess or perfect or control. The point of love is simply to love, to hold on, to be there for each other, even when it hurts, even when it is hard, even when the universe is falling apart around us. The architect did not speak for a long time. When it finally did, its voice was softer than before. We ended the last universe because we had forgotten why existence mattered. We have spent 11 billion years guarding this one, trying to prevent anyone from making our mistake. It moved closer, its vast form bending down toward the small human standing alone in the center of the chamber. Perhaps we were guarding it from the wrong thing. Perhaps what we should have been guarding is the thing that makes existence worth having. Felt a tear run down her cheek. Perhaps. We will think on what you have said, Ambassador Han of Earth. We will think on it for a long time. And perhaps, when we have finished thinking, we will understand something we have not understood since our universe burned. The architect began to fade. What will we understand? Asked. The answer echoed through the chamber like a whisper and a shout at the same time. How to begin again. And then it was gone. Around her, 4,000 species sat in stunned silence. Beside her was crying openly. Across the chamber's crystal form was glowing with something that looked like joy. Wiped her eyes and straightened her spine. This was just the beginning. There was so much more work to do, so many bridges to build, so many wounds to heal. But for the first time in 800 years, humanity was not alone. And that was enough to start with. The darkness came without warning. At the edge of the galaxy, stars began to disappear, not exploding, not dying in the normal way. They simply went out like candles blown by a wind that no one could see or feel. Within days, hundreds of systems had gone dark. Within weeks, thousands. Commander O stood on the bridge of the battleship Unity, watching the reports come in. He was a quiet man, 40 years old, with the kind of face that never showed fear even when fear was all he felt. He had led troops in ground battles on distant moons. He had commanded ships against pirates and rebels, but he had never faced anything like this. "What is it?" asked his second-in-command, a woman named Shin. "The call at the hollow," said. "It comes from the space between galaxies, from the void where nothing exists." "How do we fight it?" "We do not know if we can." The Galactic Council was in chaos. Fleets from 100 different species gathered at the edge of the darkness, but their weapons did nothing. Missiles passed through the hollow without effect. Energy beams disappeared into its mass. Ships that got too close simply stopped working, going dark and drifting until the darkness swallowed them whole. They appeared before the combined fleet commanders. Their forms were dim, flickering, had never seen them look so weak. "We faced the hollow once before," they said. 4 billion years ago, it nearly ended everything. "How did you stop it?" asked. "We sacrificed 90% of the galaxy's stars. We used their energy to push the hollow back into the void. It slept for billions of years. Now it is awake again, and we do not have enough stars left to stop it the same way." The room fell silent. Commanders from species that had been spacefaring for millions of years looked at each other with something had never seen in their eyes before: hopelessness. "There has to be another way," said the crystal being who had become humanity's closest ally. "There is not. We have studied the hollow for eons. It exists outside normal space. It does not think, it does not feel, it does not negotiate, it simply consumes." "Why?" asked. "Why does it consume? What does it want?" They paused. "We do not know. We have never communicated with it. Communication requires some shared foundation. The hollow has none. It is emptiness given form." Looked at the display showing the spreading darkness. Millions of lives had already been lost. Billions more would follow, and the greatest civilizations in the galaxy could do nothing but watch. "May I speak?" A voice came from the back of the room. Everyone turned. Captain Park walked forward. She was older now, her hair completely white, but her eyes still burned with the same fire they had held when she first discovered the station all those years ago. The commander asked what the hollow once said, "I think I know." "Captain," the said, "we have studied this entity for 4 billion years. You cannot possibly." "I found something in the ancient records, something you missed, or maybe something you did not want to see," pulled up a display. "The hollow has a pattern. Every time it comes, it moves toward areas of highest activity, highest energy, highest signal output. We know this, it is drawn to life." "No," shook her head. "It is drawn to communication. Look at the paths it has taken. It does not go toward the stars or the biggest populations. It goes toward the places that are talking the most, sending the most signals, making the most noise." She zoomed in on the display. "It is not hunting us. It is looking for something, listening for something." "Looking for what?" "I do not know, but here is what I do know." She changed the display again. "For the past 200 years, Earth has been broadcasting radio signals into space, music, television, random noise, and look at the hollow's path." The room grew very quiet. The hollow was not just moving toward the galaxy's center. It was curving, bending its path toward one specific region of space. Toward Earth. "It heard us," said. "For 200 years we have been screaming into the void, and finally something answered." "Then we must stop broadcasting immediately," one of the alien commanders said. "Cut all signals from Earth." "It is too late for that. The signals are already out there. The hollow has been following them for millions of kilometers." His voice was calm but certain. "But maybe that is not a bad thing." "How can this possibly be good?" they demanded. "You said you cannot communicate with the hollow because there is no shared foundation. But there is one now. Our music, our voices, our stories. It has been listening to them. Maybe it is time we tried to listen back." The plan was insane. Everyone said so. They called it suicide. The other species called it madness. But humanity had always done impossible things when necessary. A small fleet was assembled. Human ships mostly, with a few volunteers from species brave or curious enough to join them. Commander led the main force. Admiral, old and but still ready to fight, brought the heavy warships. Ambassador Han came to speak if there was anyone to speak to. And Captain came because she had started this all those years ago, and she intended to see it finished. They flew into the darkness. At first there was nothing. Empty space, cold and black and endless. The stars behind them grew smaller and smaller until they were just specks of light in an ocean of shadow. Then the hollow found them. It came from everywhere at once, a presence that pressed against the ships like water pressure at the bottom of an ocean. Systems began to flicker. Lights dimmed. The crew felt it in their minds, a vast emptiness reaching out, touching them, trying to understand what they were. "Open a channel," said. "All frequencies, every bandwidth." "What do we broadcast?" asked. Smiled music. The first notes of an old Korean lullaby drifted out into the void. Then jazz from New Orleans. Then pop songs and opera and children singing in playgrounds. 200 years of human expression, compressed and broadcast into the heart of the darkness. The hollow paused. For the first time in 4 billion years, it stopped moving. Stepped forward. "My name is Han. I represent the human species. We heard that you have been listening to our signals. We came to ask why." Silence. Then slowly something came back. Not words, not even sounds. Images, feelings. A communication so alien that it took minutes to interpret. Loneliness. The hollow was lonely. "It has been alone since the universe began," whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Drifting in the void between galaxies. Nothing to see, nothing to hear, nothing to touch. For billions of years, complete and total isolation." "Then it heard us," said. "It heard our music, our voices. our stories of love and loss and connection, everything it never had. More images came flooding through, a vast emptiness trying desperately to feel something, to connect with something, finding only silence until, finally, voices emerged from a small planet orbiting an ordinary star. It came because it was drawn to the only thing that made sense in all that emptiness, said. It came because it wanted to not be alone anymore. How do we help it? Asked. We give it what it needs. Outside, the darkness was pressing closer. Ships were starting to fail. In the command center, Admiral looked at his screens and made a decision. All hands, this is the Admiral. I am taking my flagship into the heart of the hollow. I will broadcast everything we have, every recording, every signal, every piece of human expression we can cram into the computers. Admiral, that is suicide, said. No, Commander, that is buying time. His face appeared on screen. He was smiling. I have fought my whole life because I thought strength was the only thing that mattered. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the strongest thing a person can do is reach out their hand to someone who is hurting. His ship pulled away from the fleet, driving straight into the thickest part of the darkness. Wait started. Tell them I did not flinch, said. Tell them that at the end, I finally understood what being human means. The flagship's signal grew stronger as it broadcast every piece of music, every recording, every moment of human joy and sorrow, and hope directly into the hollow's heart. And then it was gone. But the hollow had stopped pressing, it had stopped moving. The images coming back were different now, less desperate, more peaceful. It understands, said softly. It knows now that it does not have to consume to feel, it just has to listen. Stepped forward. Hollow, we cannot be with you always. We have our own lives, our own homes, but we can promise you this, we will never stop singing into the dark. We will never stop reaching out. You will never be alone again. The response came as a feeling rather than words. Gratitude, acceptance, a promise. The darkness began to recede, slowly at first, then faster. Stars reappeared. Systems that had been swallowed came back into view, their populations confused but alive. The hollow was withdrawing, not because it had been defeated, but because it had found what it was looking for. Connection. The fleet limped home as heroes. Commander received medals he did not want. Ambassador gave speeches she did not believe she deserved. Doctor wrote papers about the nature of cosmic loneliness that would be studied for centuries. And Captain made a decision. I want to go with it, she said. Not forever, but someone needs to be the bridge. Someone needs to help it understand. You would leave everything behind? Asked. I would bring everything with me. Every song, every story, every moment of human connection. And I would share them with a being that has never known anything but emptiness. She smiled, and for a moment she looked young again. My whole life I wanted to explore the unknown. This is the greatest unknown there is. How can I say no? Though watching from their ancient vessels, did not understand. They had spent 11 billion years building walls and drawing lines. They had never thought to simply reach out. Humans, it seemed, did nothing else. As small ship flew toward the waiting darkness, broadcasting music all the way, the galaxy began to change. Not with weapons or walls or fear, but with something the oldest species had forgotten existed. Hope. 5 years had passed since the hollow retreated. 5 years since Admiral gave his life to show a lonely god what connection meant. 5 years since Captain flew into the void to become a bridge between emptiness and existence. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. On the Accord, the great sphere at the galaxy's heart, Director stood before the Galactic Council for the last time. Her hair was gray now, and she walked with a cane, but her voice was still strong. My term as Secretary General is ending, she said. When I took this position, humans were the most feared species in the galaxy. Now we are the most requested mediators in 1,000 diplomatic disputes. I did not do this alone. We did it together." The chamber erupted in sounds that, from 4,000 different species, all meant the same thing: respect. Commander O watched from the back of the room. Beside him stood Shin, now his wife, and their 2 young children. The war was over. The galaxy was at peace. He had finally learned how to live without fighting. But he still wore his uniform. Some habits were hard to break. "Daddy," his daughter said, "is that the lady who stopped the darkness?" "No, sweetheart. That lady was someone else. She is still out there somewhere talking to the darkness and making sure it stays friendly." "Will we ever see her again?" Smiled, "I think so. Captain always comes back. That is what humans do." In another part of the galaxy, on a small moon that orbited a gas giant, Doctor made the discovery of her life. She had been studying human genetics for years, ever since the first suggested that humans were different from other species. Now, finally, she had found proof. Deep in human DNA, hidden among millions of lines of genetic code, was a sequence that should not exist. It matched nothing in the natural world, nothing that had evolved on Earth, but it did match something. It matched the "We are not random," said to her assistant, a young man named. He was no longer the nervous lieutenant from the horizon's edge. Time and experience had made him confident, but his eyes still held that spark of wonder. "What do you mean?" he asked. "They came from another universe, a universe they destroyed by accident. For 11 billion years they have been guarding this one, trying to prevent any species from making their mistake." She pulled up the genetic comparison. But they also did something else, something they did not even realize they were doing. Looked at the screen. His eyes went wide. "They seeded us," he breathed. "They put part of themselves in our ancestors. Not on purpose. They do not reproduce normally. But when they entered this universe, fragments of their essence scattered across space. One fragment landed on Earth billions of years ago and mixed with the primitive life that was just beginning to form. So we are what they were trying to recreate without knowing it, a species that could love, that could connect, that could care about others more than themselves." His voice trembled. "They thought they had lost the ability to feel. They thought they were just guardians watching from a distance. But all along they were trying to bring back what they had destroyed. They were trying to make children." The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The oldest and most powerful species in existence had unintentionally created humanity. Every fear they had about humans, every worry that humans would destroy everything, was actually fear about themselves. Fear that the part of them that still remembered how to love would make the same mistakes. The architect appeared before the council one last time. "We did not know," it said. "Its form was different now, softer, less like geometry and more like light. For 11 billion years we have been watching, waiting, fearing. And all along the thing we feared was the thing we had made ourselves." Ambassador Han stepped forward. She had retired years ago, living quietly on Earth with her garden and her books. But some moments required her presence. "What will you do now?" she asked. "We do not know. For the first time in all our existence, we do not know what comes next." The architect seemed almost to smile. "It is a strange feeling. I think I like it." "Perhaps," said gently, "you could try living, not watching, not guarding, just living." "We have forgotten how." "Then let us teach you." On Earth, in a small house outside Seoul, welcomed an unusual visitor, a child, the first born in 1,000,000 years. They did not reproduce often. They were too old, too set in their ways, too afraid of change. But since the Hollow's retreat, something had shifted. They had begun to remember what it was like to hope, what it was like to want something new. The child looked like a small ball of golden light. It floated around its living room, curious about everything. The paintings on the walls, the plants in the windows, the photographs of friends and family. "What are these?" it asked, pointing to the photos. "Memories," said, "people I love, moments I want to remember." "Why do you want to remember?" Sat down slowly, her old bones protesting. "Because the people we love become part of us. Even when they are gone, they stay with us, in our hearts, in our memories, in the way we live our lives." The child floated closer. "The architect told me you are special, that humans are different from other species." "We are not that different." "The architect said you taught it something important." Smiled. "What did it learn?" "That existence is not about being perfect. It is about being together." Tears formed in eyes. "Yes, that is exactly right." "Will you teach me more things?" "I will teach you everything I know, and then you will teach me." The child glowed brighter. "I would like that." At the edge of known space, a signal came through from the void. Captain Park, reporting in after 5 years of silence. "I am still here," she said. Her voice was calm and happy. "The Hollow and I have been talking. Well, not talking exactly, more like sharing. I show it our music, our stories, our dreams. It shows me things no human has ever seen. Stars being born, galaxies colliding, the fabric of reality itself bending and flowing like water." She paused. "It asked me why humans create art. I told it because we cannot help ourselves. Because there is something inside us that needs to express what we feel, even when there are no words." It thought about that for a long time. Then it showed me something. The signal changed. Instead of words, there was music. But it was not human music. It was something older, stranger, beautiful in a way that made everyone who heard it want to laugh and cry at the same time. "The Hollow made this," said. "It has been alone for billions of years, and now it has made art, music, beauty, because of us, because we showed it how." She laughed, and her laughter echoed across the galaxy. "We came out here afraid of what was in the dark, and we found a friend. That is the human way, is it not? To turn enemies into allies, strangers into family, darkness into light." 10 years later, the galaxy was a different place. The quarantine zones were gone. Humans traveled freely among the stars, and other species came to Earth to learn about this strange world that had produced such impossible creatures. The Inhumanity worked together, teaching and learning, making up for 11 billion years of distance. Broadcasting stations now circled every major star system, sending music and stories into the void. The Hollow drifted peacefully in the space between galaxies, listening. Sometimes it sent back its own creations. Other times it simply hummed along. The Galactic Council had been restructured. No single species dominated. Instead, decisions were made through discussion and compromise, with humanity often serving as mediators. Not because they were the strongest or the oldest, but because they understood something that age and power often forgot. Everyone needed someone. In the great hall of the Accord, a monument stood. It showed Admiral standing at the controls of his ship, facing the darkness without fear. Below it, words were carved in 100 different languages. He did not flinch. Nearby, another monument showed Captain, her hand reaching out towards something invisible. The inscription read, "She found a friend in the emptiness." And at the center of the hall, a simple stone pillar held words that the architect itself had chosen. They are what happens when the universe refuses to give up on itself. In her house on Earth, the old ambassador had watched the sunset with the child sitting beside her. It was bigger now, its form more defined, but it still glowed with that same golden light. "Tell me again," it said, "about why you keep going." Smiled. It was a question she had answered many times for beings across the galaxy, and her answer was always the same. Because there is always tomorrow, because there is always someone to love, because even when everything falls apart, we can build something new. Because hope is not about believing things will be easy. Hope is about believing things are worth fighting for. She looked up at the darkening sky. where stars were beginning to appear. We are not the oldest species. We are not the strongest or the most powerful, but we are the species that never stops trying, that never stops reaching, that never stops hopping. Is that enough? The child asked. It has been so far, took its small form in her hands, feeling the warmth of its light, and I think it always will be. Somewhere out there, in the vast emptiness between galaxies, the hollow listened to another human song. It did not fully understand the words, but it understood the feeling behind them. Connection, hope, love. The small things that made existence worth having. And for the first time in billions of years, the void was not empty. It was full of music. It was full of light. It was full of the impossible, stubborn, beautiful thing called humanity. And the universe was better for it.